Johnny Lunchbucket, and I am so excited about what's going on in my life right now. I am an old man, lived a lot of life, got a lot of regrets, but a lot of happy. But right now, I'm doing something called GPS, God's Purposed System. And we're putting this together with the hopes of for the rest of my life, finding as many people as I can and giving them directions to heaven. I don't think there's anything more important in our life than getting to heaven. So as we do that, and as we looked at life, all of our life, it was out there and we thought about it, but it is nothing even close to compare to the importance of that. And so many people walk around their whole life wondering, well, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do this. And so anyway, I've come up with a little theory right now, and I want to relate it to you. I'm dressed in all of my military garb. I was with the 173rd Airborne in Vietnam, and I was there in 67, 68. I've got a CIB right here on this, which says that in combat, I was either shot at somebody. And this is my jump wings. That means I jumped out of airplanes. Not that that's smart, but it's what we did. Now, in life, and I've never had anything more serious in my life than what I'm talking about right now. And I made a decision a few years ago from a voice I heard from God that said, go to work for me. And it was go to work for me. Good grief, I'm not a preacher. If somebody looked in my closet, they'd be scared to death. All the things I've done bad and wrong. But he said, go to work for me. Well, I am a salesman and a marketer. That's what I've done all my life. So I want to think about this, or you to think about this, as I'm marketing heaven. I've got a ticket that you could grab a hold of and have everything that you'd ever want in life for the rest of eternity. Big statement, huge statement. Good grief. How could that possibly be? Well, it can, and I'm going to try my best to explain a little of that to you today, because I think it's critical that you make a decision that you want to go to heaven. And you don't make a decision about going to heaven until you believe there is a heaven. And until you believe there's a God, you're not going to believe there's a heaven. So in your life, and God is in us, whether we like it or not. He made this old body. He made it. Took clay and all this. There you are. But inside that, he created our soul. And he created that from him. So that part of him is already in us. And all we're trying to do is to get that to come to the surface and take control. Now, I'm going to use an analogy today of joining the military, because it's as good a thing as I've ever seen to try to explain how all this works. And it is so simple. It is so simple, but it's so awesome. And so in this, I'm going to talk about the things that you would go through if you joined the military. And I'm going to use the Army because I was in the Army. But you can use any of it, it doesn't matter. But where you are in our lives, no different than we would watch television and see a commercial for join the Army, join the Navy, join the Marine Corps. And we look at that, and then there's things that you'd say, I'd like that. No, I don't do that. Now, but in that, God speaks to us inside and says, I'm looking for you. I'm here. And I'd like for you to join my army. And that's paraphrasing, of course. But God says, come join me. And my yoke is easy and my burden's light. So as we get into that, and I'm not standing here talking about Bible thumping, I'm talking about what you feel, what you see, what you can touch. But if we're going through that process, so let's just say for a minute that you'd like to go to heaven. Well, how do I get there? Well, you start by getting inducted into the Army. And I'm just using that as a parallel. That induction, when you go, the day before you go, life is like this, whatever this is. And our phrase in this, as a Christian or going to heaven, ye must be born again. That is the only stipulation to get into heaven. But then knowledge of how to get there is what we all do. That's inquisitive. Ye must be born again. So therefore, at some point, there's one thing we cannot dodge, period. And that is this old flesh is going to lay down and die. And the second it dies, that soul that is going somewhere. And I'm saying to you today that somewhere needs to be heaven. And it's instant when that happens. Boom. You're there or you're not. Now, so let's talk about, because once you've made that decision, once you're in God's army, you are never, ever going to get out of it. I was going through this morning. I told my wife to go print me out the enlistment oath that you take when you join the military. And everybody takes it. I swear. I'll defend this country with my life. I swear it. Now, when we get to where we need to be with God, there's going to be a time when we say, God, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to go to heaven. And when you can, excuse me a minute, when you get to that point, I want to go to heaven. And as military, and I just had 2 grandsons join the military. One joined the Navy and one joined the Marine Corps. And they are fired up young men, but I remember back to my day, everything changed the day you went into the military. And in your life, when you are born again, I promise you, everything will change from this day on. Not for the bad, for the good, for knowledge, for all those things. But you go in and you're inducted into the military. And I'm just going to use the Army. I'm inducted into the Army. And we got a bunch of other guys standing around the same scenario, and we've raised our right hand and we're swearing an oath. I swear on my life that I will defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Lord, I'm swearing to you that I will do whatever you ask. I want to go to heaven. And that induction changes everything because it's voluntary. Ain't nobody made you do it. I want to do this. And when you've done that induction, the next thing they're going to say to you, you got to go to basic training. Okay. Now, everything changed because all the rules and regulations that you had pre-born again day or pre-enlistment date was A, B, C, D. Now, everything is by the book. Meaning, here's what it takes. Here's what you're going to do. And that DI in the Army, whoever he is going to tell you, I am now your mama, your daddy, your preacher, your priest. I am your whatever, because I'm going to tell you how this goes. And that's what we need to be looking at as we join God's army. Because there is such an awesome feeling in us when we make that decision. Yeah. Yeah, God, I want. Oh, yeah. I want what you got. I want it. So we get that, and that going to basic training is life-changing. And in God's world, that basic training starts with, I'm going to get baptized. I don't know what there is in baptism except this. It's no different than joining the army, and you don't feel any of that or much of that until you put on the uniform. And the second they issue you that uniform and you put it on, life changes. I promise you. When you get baptized, you're putting on the uniform of God, and you're going to feel that same pride factor. I did this. And you're telling the world is what it's all about. Because until you put on the uniform, you were just like everybody else. But the second you put on that uniform, you are now a soldier. When you get baptized, you're telling the world, I have just joined God's army. And I'm here to do what I can for God. Now, and my family, naturally, all that comes, but it's inside us. Because when we get down to it, and at the end of the day, it's you or me and God. I love all of my family, good grief. I love everybody. But when it's down to the end, it's me and God. Now, that basic training starts with being baptized, and you've got a different attitude. When you're baptized, you got a different attitude when you put on a military uniform. And then that's called basic training. You're just getting the basics of what this means to be a Christian or what it means to be a soldier. And then you get to plotting and thinking about all the things that you would like to do for God. And you better be thinking like that. What can I do for God? Because what's he done for me? My Lord, let's just make a little short list. We on this earth work all of our life trying to get a house, a car, pay insurance, food, do. Well, in one move, born again, I've got a home forever. All my insurance is paid. All of my health is paid. All of my food is paid forever. Whew. See, you can't even comprehend that. Forever. It's paid. And who paid that? Jesus. He paid it. So it's a done deal. It's over. But we go, and this is called AIT, Advanced Individual Training. Because as soon as you join God's army, he's got a job for you, whether you like it or not. Now, he's going to open a lot of doors, and you're going to decide in that where you want to go. And it's no different join the military. They're going to, at AIT, Advanced Individual Training, I want to be a infantryman. I want to be an a pilot. I want to be that, whatever that is. I want to be a mechanic. I want to be a cook. Don't matter. In God's army, it's the same way. We've got job descriptions. And we can do those. And see right here in this little old town I'm in, how many people are not born again? Good grief. There'll be thousands of them that hadn't been born again. They've heard about it, but they're not born again. You've got to make that commitment for born again. But when it's done, out of that's going to come, out of your AIT training, is going to come your MOS. And that's real simple. Military Occupational Specialist. MOS. What's my occupation? God, what do you have me do? Well, I want you to be a Sunday school teacher. Okay? I want you to be a minister. I want you to be and here's the directions. And whatever it is, it's important in God's army because all of us are not going to be on the front lines. Some of us going to be in the rear. And it was so shocking to me when I was in the Vietnam War to realize it took 7 men or women in the rear to support me in the field. 7. Well, it takes all of us. And you see, and I've wondered, did for years, why in the world is all this church stuff necessary? Good grief. Well, it's necessary for the same reason that you've got an outfit in the military. Mine was the 173rd Airborne Brigade. That was my outfit. I had pride in that. And I promise you, if I go into town today and I go to the First Baptist Church, anybody in that church that's been born again is proud to be there. And they know they've got something to do in God's army. And if I go down the street to the Methodist Church or the Church of God or whatever it is, the same thing. And that's just the different branches of the army or the military. And, you know, you look at that and say, well, why in the world wouldn't everybody want to be in the 173rd Airborne? Because everybody don't want to jump out of airplanes that are perfectly good. But here's this, that, whatever it is, pride in that. Well, I'm proud to have served in the United States military, but I'm a lot more proud to say, God, what can I do? I have wasted, good grief, all these years, and I've got a talent for selling and marketing, and I ain't done none of that. But I've got however many days I've got to get this message told to as many people as I can tell it to, because the simplicity of being born again gets you these credentials. It gets you this as a reward. And there's nothing comparable, because when that day comes, and all of us, A-L-L, all of us, that's the only thing we've absolutely got in common. And that is that this body is going to die, period. And the other part of that is this soul is never going to die. And when that can really sink in, and then when you say, ooh, whoa, and I don't care where you are, I'm 77 years old. But when I was 7 years old, that seemed like a long time. But I promise you, it was just 2 days ago that I was 7. That's the way it feels. You know what I'm talking about. And it's no time till I'm going to be facing heaven. And as I go there, because after we go to MOS and we get designated, my MOS was infantry in the Army. That's where this combat infantryman's badge came from, infantry. And in that, now in God's army, whatever he declares that we need to be as a MOS, that's where he's going to assign our duty station. And after all the training, we've got a duty station that we're going to that's in God's army that's going to promote God on this earth and get us to where we want to go. Now, when I was in the military, and I was before all this volunteer, I was drafted. But when I was drafted, I had no choice. I had to go. And when you join, it's done. You're there. And then you create why. What is my exit strategy from this job, this military job, or this one? What's my exit strategy? And in every business I've ever had, there's an exit strategy. What is it? Well, the exit strategy is, I want to do. Well, my exit strategy is I want to go to heaven. That is my exit strategy. When I leave here, heaven is my goal. So as I get that done, everything I do is directed there. And if I'm in business, if I'm in the restaurant business, my exit strategy is so many people every day, I want to feed them. And then when that's done, I want to sell this and make enough money that I can go retire and somebody feed me. It's so simple. And yet we try to complicate it so much. But ladies and gentlemen, all of this is coming, like it or not. And they ain't no stopping it. They ain't no turning sideways. You're going to die. Your body is. Your soul is never going to die. And it's already there in one piece. And all God is asking us to do is inside us say, get the body out of the way and let me take control. That's what GPS means. God's purposed system. And from the days I was in combat, that GPS saved my life many times. And it has many times since. Now, I didn't call it GPS. I did several years ago when I started. But back then, I just called it my God gut. God, don't go there, okay? Because what he does with us is tells us, don't do this. Yeah, do that. Love that person. Go stop what you're doing right now and go over there and give that guy $10 right now. That's what GPS does. It says to love, L-O-V-E, love everybody. And when you meet somebody, and that's the beauty of a church, that you're around people. And it's just like this. I drive lots of miles just to see guys that was in the 173rd Airborne because we've got a common denominator that somebody else ain't got. And when you go to church, you're around people, not all of them. It ain't never that situation. But you got around people that believe in God. And you can talk to them about godly things, and it matters. So your duty station, like I said, everybody's got a job. Everybody's got a job. And the faster we can get into our job, and when I look at churches here, and I'm in North Georgia mountains, a little old bitty town, and a bunch of little old bitty churches around. And I grew up in one of them, been gone for years and just got back, but grew up in one of them. No growth, no nothing, because they're not doing anything with GPS. Invite him in. Let him control where you go. And if you'll ask him, I promise you, he'll tell you. Can't tell you how many times I've gotten in my car to go somewhere. And he said, go back on. And you can't argue with it if you're going to do it. You've got to listen to him. And my kids have all the time as grown up want to beat me because as soon as I get in the car, I turn the radio off. They want it up blaring music. I want it off. Why? Because I want to hear God talk to me. I don't want interruption with that. Now, can you do both? I guess some people can. I'm just too dumb for that. But you have to decide what you want to do with your duty station. Because here's what I've got as a third-party story for you, and I believe it. I say this in a lot of videos I do, but I was one of them people that I was gone for 5 hours, and I was just a boy, but I went to the light. I got to the doors of heaven. It was amazing, the most peaceful, oh my, it's unreal. And when you can stop and think about it, you don't want to be anywhere else, right there. So in my life, on an everyday basis, I believe this and work with this. The worst thing that could happen to me today is that I die. And when you realize that, that's the worst thing to happen. And the next breath, you say the best thing that could happen to me today is that I die. Now think about that. Let that soak in. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called total peace. Total peace. I dread the sting of death, but not the death, because that gives me total peace. And there's nothing more important, I mean nothing more important than having that peace with God. And that can only come when you're born again. So give that some thought, and you'll be finding us on a web page here just in a few days, and I'll get that to you. But give your life to God. Turn it all over to GPS, God's purpose system. Because I promise you, it ain't but a few minutes till we're all in heaven, no matter which way we look at it. You have a great, great, great day, and we'll talk again soon.